The following podcast includes explicit content. Listener discretion is advised.
I must address you, the listener. You're the person who chose to listen to this garbage. You've begun listening under the assumption that this was only a simple little baseball podcast. Little did you know you've now entered the HOTO zone. It's time for Heart of the Order.
Welcome, Heart of the Order. We are back from a little bit of an extended break. Our last episode, we wanted to breathe a little bit. It was a classic. We sat down, talked with Foul Territory host Scott Braun. It was a wonderful conversation. As we get into tonight's episode, I do kind of want to give a friendly caution. I've upgraded phones. My USB microphone is not compatible with my new phone, so we got a fix on the way. It's been shipped. It's not quite here, so if I sound a little rougher than normal, I'm using a kind of a different headset, but we won't let that stop us. Joining me as always, my co-hosts Mac and Richie. How are you guys doing?
Wonderful.
Okay, Pasta.
So where are we sitting right now? We are in the depths of spring training. Today's episode got rained out, unfortunately. Completely upset me. The one day where I can sit down and enjoy a spring training game, it's rained out, canceled. But regardless, how are we feeling so far going into spring training? And I'm going to set this question up because we haven't really had a conversation about it as a collective group. We have 0 home runs. Do you think this is a storyline being beat to death, or does it have either of you concerned?
It's beat to death, and last year is the perfect example of why spring training is nothing more than a time for these guys to obviously get out there and get their feet wet. I mean, you can have whatever opinion you want about it, but if last year didn't prove to you that, hey, these games don't have any meaning towards the regular season, MLB season, you're crazy. I mean, look at every negative Twitter comment that I've ever seen. Like, look at the lineups they're putting out every day. We haven't seen a lineup with, I think the first game of the year maybe had Goldschmidt, Arenado, Nootbaar, Gorman in it. Like, these lineups aren't anything close to what we're going to be seeing. It's frustrating to me, obviously, when you see a team who's out there struggling a little bit offensively for as good as they should be, but who cares? We'll see.
No, I'm right there with you, dude. If anybody was to say that the Cardinals not having a home run concern them, I would refer you to Aaron Judge not having a home run in spring training. So, I mean, like, these guys are going to hit, bro. These guys are going to hit. It is what it is. A lot of these guys are just getting kinks worked out. It's, their first time back on the field in the whole offseason. Some of the guys like Victor Scott have, worked in the Arizona Fall League, and, a couple other guys have been working out as well. And I'm not taking any of that away from them, but, sometimes it takes a little bit longer for the game to catch up. You get back out there on the field. And I know this, like, when I played, man, I wasn't 100% ready to rock and roll on fucking day one of throwing again. Like, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to fucking heat up the bat or your arm. And these are all kinks this is exactly what spring training is for. It's all kinks that you work out now, so it doesn't matter in the regular season. And the Cardinals are too damn good of an offensive team to really get into a blunder of, like, not hitting home runs. I'm telling you right now, though, when it comes to spring training, they're going to have their first home run hit, and it's going to be like somebody fucking random that you didn't expect to happen, like Michael Ciani. Like, that'll be like the fucking first home run of spring training for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add myself to the thought. I agree with both of you. I'm not worried about it at all. There are things, though, worth talking about right now. The Edman conversation has been discussed in length. I think we're all in agreement he's likely not going to be ready. I know there's an off chance he will be. Let's enter the conversation with the understanding that he might not be. We signed Brandon Crawford. We really haven't had an opportunity to discuss that collectively. We probably all agree that Alec Burleson is the guy on the outside looking in. When you look at this roster, and I'm going to let you guys talk and then I'll chime in my opinion. Do we pretty much know who is going to get what spot other than maybe one or two bullpen slots? Is this team pretty much set in your opinion?
I
Back
don't
on
think
that.
the outfield.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
sorry.
Go
I
ahead,
just don't think
Richie.
the outfield is set by any means. I mean, what are when you're saying Alec Burleson's the guy on the outside, or where do you see like Dylan Carlson sitting then? You see him as like he's slot penciled in, or
I think Dylan Carlson is going to be your starting center
okay,
fielder if Tommy Edman isn't healthy. That's
right,
my opinion.
right, okay. No, that's definitely a fair opinion. I would disagree personally if I was the one making the lineup chart, but um, yeah, I don't know what you do when Tommy Edmonds hurt. I'm kind of more leaning towards okay, let's hope he's back by the hopefully second week of the season. But yeah, I'm not super high on Dylan Carlson, so I guess I could disagree with you there.
So let me run with this a little bit, Richie. If you don't have Dylan Carlson, who do you have
Well,
if Edman's hurt?
I think Victor Scott is your guy. You give a chance to early on, bank on your young cats. I know he's one of the fastest guys out there. That plays speed plays, and this team doesn't necessarily have a ton of it, so that's an area you might be lacking. You could definitely help improve the team.
So based upon recent history, the person that's going to get the job by default is Dylan Carlson. If the Cardinals were smart, they would bring in Victor Scott and add a completely different element to their everyday lineup. I say that you could roll Victor Scott in center. I don't even know what the hell you would do with Carlson. Maybe send him down. I don't even know. I really don't. I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to pretend like I do, but I'm just saying, like, if I were the Cardinals, I'd be starting Victor Scott in center field. And if, God forbid, like, that didn't work out for him, you have Newpar that has played center field and has been successful. So, I mean, like, there wouldn't be like a null and void there. You could replace it, but I still think that I bank on Victor Scott's ceiling. And I mean, something crazy about, just a guy that has the potential to steal 100 bases in your lineup. If the guy can even remotely get on base, like, you're adding a very different element to your lineup. And I know we've talked about it before, man. We've talked about the Cardinals offenses the last couple of years, completely flipping the script from, 8 years ago. The offense is inclined to be better than it has been, and you got a lot of young bucks coming up and you got a lot of good hitters in this lineup. And it's fair to say that, maybe during one of those scoring droughts that we so often see in the Cardinals year, like there will be games where we just like absolutely pitch our asses off and we can't score. But I think that if you put Victor Scott in your lineup, there's always a chance to score.
Where I'd be interested to hear live what your take is on that. But if I'm sitting in a room with John Mozeliak, I'm asking him how many more chances is Dylan Carlson going to get? I mean, I know he's young, he's a super highly touted prospect and whatnot, but I mean, what does he have left to go out there and prove? We know he's a slightly above average defender. He's going to get the job done in center field, but he doesn't bring enough offense to the table to even like sit anywhere in this lineup, let alone arguably any other MLB lineup. He's just not good enough at the plate. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say.
Well, it's a tricky answer because it can be multi-dimensional if you want to think of it from just an organizational standpoint, a Dylan Carlson value standpoint. Yeah, we still have to think about that. The reason why, if you give the job to Victor Scott out of spring training, if your goal is to, he played better, best man wins the job, so be it. But I don't know if there's going to be a clear-cut win from him. I don't know if he's going to be able to just run away with the job. I think right now, if you ask a lot of people, if it was even, if it was, Victor Scott, Dylan Carlson, they both performed at an equal level, but you have Victor Scott's speed that separates the two. Most people would probably give it to Victor Scott. I would say, well, let's go ahead and start him in AAA. Let's give him a little bit more seasoning. We have Dylan Carlson. He's designated as our fourth outfielder. If he has to play a week or two as the starting center fielder until Tommy Edman's ready, I want to do that. And the reason why, couple reasons. No, Dylan Carlson doesn't deserve another chance. But he is the fourth outfielder. He was designated as the fourth outfielder. The Cardinals passed on moving him for reasons. It's because his value is low. This may be the only opportunity for the Cardinals to see if Dylan Carlson, healthy, can take the job and run with it. And I'm not that scared of Dylan Carlson being in center field. I think he's average and at times above average in center field. He's had some rough plays here and there, but mostly I trust him out there. I also think Dylan Carlson, if he can live up to what he can be, is better offensively than Tommy Edman. And I think he can be better offensively than Victor Scott minus the speed. At Dylan Carlson at what he's supposed to be is better than both of those players. Are we going to get that Dylan Carlson? Probably not. I think the Cardinals will do more damage overall to not just Dylan Carlson's value. I think they put starting Victor Scott the third's career in a weird kind of position, maybe bringing him up to face major league pitching when he's not quite ready. I don't see nothing wrong with starting him out a month in AAA, 2 months in AAA, and if he just forces the Cardinals' hand, then bring him up. I just think the Cardinals are better giving Dylan Carlson not one more shot, but just allowing him to do his job, what has been designated as the fourth outfielder. You know what I mean?
So do you think that putting that, let's just say the Cardinals give Victor Scott the nod, they add him to the he makes the team out on opening day. Do you think that like puts too much pressure on a guy like Carlson, or do you think that like starting him off in AAA would make Carlson more comfortable, knowing he has a bigger role perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I don't think Dylan Carlson needs any more pressure on him. I think we're past that. I don't know if there's anything that you can do to drive Dylan Carlson any more than where he's sitting at right now. His career is out in front of him. It can go in two directions, and really he's already past that fork in the road, and he's already on the path of the least, well traveled. He probably doesn't want to be on the path that he's currently on. If you were to give Dylan Carlson truth serum, he'd probably want to be on a different organization. Not because he has a problem with the Cardinals or he wants a trade, but Dylan Carlson is at the moment in time where he needs playing time. And maybe that playing time doesn't come with the pressure of being on an organization coming off of a 90-loss season that is looking at this season as one of the most pivotal seasons in franchise history in the past 20 years. Could be a make or break if Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado are on this team the following year. There's a lot of weight on this season. I don't know if this might be the most productive environment for Dylan Carlson just in general, but I don't think he needs any more pressure that's going to all of a sudden unlock something for Dylan Carlson by having a young guy coming up from behind. So my answer to that, I would let Dylan Carlson know he's going to be the center fielder on opening day if Tommy Edman isn't healthy. There's nothing Victor can do. We're going to start him in AAA. I need you to come out. I need you to breathe, and I need you to be ready to play. This is your opportunity. And it's not an opportunity we were going to give you. It's not an opportunity that we think you've earned. But hey, you got it. Injuries happen. Let's see what you got.
All right, moving right along, guys. So big news, I guess, this week. Brandon Crawford, St. Louis Cardinal. That's huge news as far as, a guy who's played for the Giants his whole career. Mac, why don't you start us off? I think it's a super exciting move, personally. I know the fan base sort of split. There's a lot of negativity around, the Cardinals going after older players. What is your take on Brandon Crawford?
Dude, the Cardinals are going to strike gold here. I know that folks are going to call me crazy, man, but I remember in the not so distant future where we got what, John Lester, J Hat. these guys, like, we often laugh about it as fans. We look at this Cardinals organization as a team that targets old guys. I mean, like, we're being laughed at by a lot of people when it comes to the lineup construction. But at the same point in time, I look at it maybe a smidge differently. I look at a bunch of guys that were just brought in, and all these guys have tasted success at the elite level. They've won World Series titles. Matt Carpenter was part of the World Series team, you know, back in the day with the Cardinals. You bring in Yadier Molina as a special advisor. You bring in Daniel Descalso, who was part of that championship run. You bring in Brandon Crawford, who is a multiple time, World Series champion in San Francisco. These guys all have the same thing in combination, and I don't always look at it as like, these players are automatically just going to come here and be washed, or be the worst version of themselves. Because I do think that there is something about St. Louis Cardinals baseball that does unlock a little bit of what's left in the tank for a lot of guys. I'm not saying that with every guy, but I'm saying that with a lot of guys, to include the historic second half of Albert Pujols. I mean, this was a guy that was talking about retiring in June, ends up having arguably a top 5 greatest second half in baseball history, especially if you consider that, some of the Dominican reports were true, and, Albert Pujols could be damn near 50 years old. Real talk. I don't know that to be a fact, but I think that is something that we have to put in consideration with all those, Latin born players, lying about their age, during that time frame. So, I mean, I think it's a solid move. It gives you what you need in depth at the, middle infield position. Obviously you have Mason Wynn as your starter, but, God forbid he goes down with injury or he needs a day off, you do have a guy that can fill in. And a guy that has had, a proven track record at the major league level. He's a serviceable bench bat is what he is.
Mm-hmm. So Steamer has him with 5 home runs, 175 plate appearances, 238 average. I think that's a little low. I agree with you, Mac. I think it's an exciting move. I want to hear what Live has to say as well, but I don't see any problem with bringing veteran presence around. There's guys who are very vocal about wanting that presence in the locker room. Nolan Arenado being one of them, your cornerstone, franchise player. I don't see a reason why not to have, more leaders in the clubhouse, and use a guy like Matt Carpenter as an example. Maybe not the best example in the world, but a guy who was with the Cardinals for how many years, 10 plus years, whatever it was. 10 years, I think it was, goes to the Yankees, hits 300, jacks 15 home runs. I mean, who knows? I know, short porch there, but it's exciting for sure. A little change of scenery for him. Who knows?
The signing in itself, I'm for. I think the Cardinals needed a backup shortstop. I actually like the thinking of giving Wynn back up, someone with veteran leadership experience to kind of mentor him, allow Tommy Edman not just to get healthy, but to focus on one position. I think if you can get Tommy just worrying about one position, you may unlock another little tool offensively. It may bring another aspect of his hitting game out, maybe more consistency, but overall keep him healthy, playing a demanding position and not having to also back up another demanding position. Crawford in itself, it's a name brand veteran shortstop. I wouldn't have mind seeing a right-handed backup. I was actually kind of on the bandwagon of looking at Nick Ahmed. I think the Cardinals did in fact look at Nick Ahmed before he signed with the Giants, and then obviously the guy that did not go to the Giants. It ended up happening pretty quickly with the Cardinals. I'm for it. I don't see him being a huge aspect on the field. I think Mason Wynn's going to get bulk of playing time minus an injury. I think he has an opportunity just to, be there when called upon. And the fact that the Cardinals have somebody that's there to call on if needed. With the season last year and running down the end with Mater and really just the makeshift lineup the Cardinals had in general, it's nice knowing that not only are we going to get lineup consistency, we're going to get defensive consistency, but we're also going to have players who've been there and done it and that can show a little bit more maybe bright side than who they were running out last year. Even towards the end of the season when everything was done and there was no way out of it, you're going to hopefully have some quality Major League Baseball players wearing the uniform this year.
I think you guys both made great points on that aspect. Let's always, we always, seem to meet some middle ground in here, and that's what I really enjoy about our baseball talks in general. Is everybody's going to see things a little bit different, but at the same point in time, I think there is a lot of similarities in our thinking. Moving on to our next topic, I know that I have been intrigued from the go. I know we've talked about it quite a bit as well, but I think we'll continuously cover it until, the regular season starts. I mean, our bullpen, I really like what they've done there. I think the construction is kind of meshing well. There's a lot of guys that I'm really enjoying watching right now. I think the highlight right now is Riley O'Brien. I mean, what a dude this was looking out to be, we all know about Seattle's pitching lab they got going on out there. It's like they breed relievers for some reason, and he's a guy that became expendable there. But this looks like a guy that could be a real win for our bullpen, and to add that to Andrew Kittredge and Keenan Middleton and uh, JoJo and Gallegos and Helsley, man, this could be a really nasty bullpen.
I think the Cardinals have a really good opportunity to maybe have a top 10 bullpen in the National League. I do think that the overall construct is looking a little cleaner, looking a little sharper. We know we're going to have JoJo, Gallegos, Helsley, Middleton, and likely Kittredge there on the back end. But you're also, like you said, O'Brien, you're going to have, who else we got? Uh, we got the
Nick
guy that,
Robertson,
Junior
Ryan
Fernandez.
Fernandez has looked phenomenal.
I don't know how Robertson's looked. I don't know if he's going to be on the fringe. He might
Ryan
go to
Fernandez is the guy that's really standing out right now.
Palante's look pretty swell as well. John King's might be an odd man looking out.
John King is most definitely the odd man looking out. He got fucking rocked the other day.
But we're seeing some guys who maybe kind of take ownership or stake their claim. Excuse me. And that is exciting to see. Well, Richie, you've been pretty quiet on your bullpen thoughts. I'd be interested to maybe hear your perspective of how you're seeing things.
I think it's going to be better than last year, which is a plus. But I think that there's still a bunch of question marks. I mean, you're pretty much banking on Helsley having a comeback year, I guess. Not his best year last year compared to what he did in 22. So, um, I'm like more excited than I was last year, I guess. There's some guys who are showing more potential, but there's also part of me, I guess this is somewhat off topic, but I don't know if I'm being like a homer too much when it comes to this team in general. When it comes to like our talk last time with Scott, he wasn't super positive when it comes to just the Cardinals as a whole. Whether that was the offense, the bullpen, the starting rotation, obviously he was pretty concerned about. I don't know, man. I don't want to like transition us too quickly here, but
No,
are we
get
being
weird.
too positive?
No, I don't. No, I don't think that at all, man. Like, yeah, I mean, Scott's opinion was, the Cardinals he doesn't think are going to be a great team, and I understand that, and I respect that point. But baseball analytics project the Cardinals to do well. Like Pacoda is projecting the Cardinals to do well. Streamer is projecting the Cardinals to do well. I mean, and that's not just like relying too much on a typical bounce back, man. Like, there are guys that I mean, here's the fact of the matter, Richie. You know just as well as I do. Riley O'Brien could make this club and end up in the bullpen. But the Cardinals also went out and got Nick Robertson, and they got the Rule 5 pick from Boston, Ryan Fernandez, who's looking really, really good. And they got Victor Santos, and they got all these other guys that they can use as relievers. to include Sam Roberts, and Klopfenstein, and all these other guys, man, they all seem that they could fit in that role going down the stretch. So it's not like the Cardinals are like, screwed in the bullpen options. And for the fact of the matter is, I don't think their pitching is ultimately going to be a struggle, as much as some analysts think. And they've been proven wrong before, man. That's the greatness of baseball. It's such a random sport. Like, you can have teams that, barely squeak in like the Cardinals did in 2011 and win. And that's part of the greatness of the game. So I don't put too much like emphasis on what other people think until I see it with my own eye test. You know what I'm saying?
And I want to chime in as well. If you look at Ben Verlander's prediction, he's loving the Reds. If Ken Rosenthal was recently on Jim the Cat Hayes Cat Corner, and he wasn't too thrilled with what the Cardinals have done. Really, I know what you're saying about projections, Mac, but if you look nationally at some of the talking heads around baseball, not many people do love the Cardinals. I don't know if what you're saying, Richie, are we being too optimistic? I don't know if you're right, Mac, when you're like, absolutely not. Projections look good. I think it's a mix of both. I think coming off a horrible season, last place finish in the division, and watching and seeing what the Cardinals have done and the names they have brought in, I think there's a reason to be a little pessimistic. I think when you look at the underlying numbers of what innings can bring and what the Cardinals have done in their bullpen and what their lineup is, I think it's fair to look at projections and have some, validity in that. I, I also think there's a little bit of what's sexy right now. It's what player is hot and new. It's Ellie. What team is upcoming? It's Cincinnati. I think it's easy to pick Cincinnati because they are the sexy team right now in the division. And if it's not Cincinnati, well, look, it's Chicago, big market town. They just brought Belly back. They went and hired Craig Counsell. That's a great talking point. Here's really what it boils down to. And this is fact, and it's interesting going into the season. You can ask fans of the Reds. You can ask fans of the Brewers. You can ask fans of the Cubs, the Cardinals, and probably even the Pirates. And each one of them will tell you that they think their club has a reasonable shot at competing for the division this year. And not every year going into a season, every fan base of a team in the division feels like they have an opportunity. There is a ton of parity right now between divisions in baseball, but it's also looking like while the Central Division isn't sexy on paper as teams to talk about, it's actually setting the page for one hell of a division race going into the season. And I think it's going to be must-see TV for us and every single fan base across our division, at least into the summer months. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you guys had to say. I think just sometimes I take a step back and I'm like, what can this team really do? Like, what are their limits right now? I know obviously trade deadline does play a big part in the season, but like when I look at them right now, do you pencil them in as, World Series contenders, just playoff hopeful? I'd probably just say playoff hopeful when I'm really trying to take off my Cardinals hat and look at it from that point of view. But I guess that strictly just comes from the sense of where the starting rotation is and just how last year's rotation was. But yeah, I agree with you, Live. There's a potential for sure. There's a lot to be excited about.
Well, let's talk about what I feel. I've got quite the impressions over the week with a couple tweets. I've also got some pretty rude comments. I've gotten some supportive comments. Really what it comes down to is I think I sparked conversation. That's usually my goal. It's not so much where I'm being parody or I'm making jokes. But sometimes what I say, I'll put something out and I'll purposely try to be a little outlandish. But really what I'm trying to do is spark baseball conversation. And if you weed through some of the craziness and the toxicity on Twitter, you'll find baseball conversation. Let me go backwards 3-1, and I know you've both seen these tweets. I said I made a couple, three to be exact, hot takes. And starting at number 3 on my hot take number 3, I said the St. Louis Cardinals will ride an elite offense, a dominant bullpen, and a key deadline acquisition into a 95-win season and a National League Central Division crown. First gut reaction. Win total, division winner, the path that they're going to take, and what's going to get them there. How do you feel about my take? Mac, go ahead.
I think it's fair. I think it's realistic. I think it's achievable. So, I mean, I don't think it's outlandish. I mean, I think it's well within the realm of possibility. In fact, I mean, like the way I perceive things, this is like an 86, 87 win team right now, and if they're really in that spot and they're competing, by all means, they're going to make a move at the deadline. They're a team that consistently does that when they're in the postseason hunt. So, I mean, I think
So,
that could boost you up a couple more wins. So, sure, I think that's a fairly accurate depiction of what could happen.
so you're saying not quite a hot take.
No, it's not a hot take at all. It's fairly realistic.
Richie, what about you?
Initial gut reaction, I'd say it's a hot take. When I've said it before. Vegas knows a little too much, and they're projecting us at 84. So I think you said 95, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a hot take, but it's not like
Richie, but he also said that making a move at the deadline. So it's not
yeah.
like the team as constructed at the moment.
Right. No, that's definitely fair then. I don't know if hot take is the right word because it's, nothing is out of the realm of possibility, but I'd say it's a little far-fetched at the moment, but I
Oh
don't
yeah,
I
for
don't
sure. No, I agree. If you were to say a team currently constructed right now, 95 wins, I would be like no. But
yeah.
I do think that I think that they could eclipse 90. I do. I mean, it really depends on how the beginning of the season really goes, Richie. I
Yeah.
hate to be that guy, but they've got a lot of tough games in the early going in the season. We're playing, LA, we're playing San Diego away, playing Miami at home. Those are good baseball teams, and it can happen. It can spiral out of control rather quickly, as
Yeah.
we found out last year.
I don't
Yeah.
remember the number or the statistic, but I think it was in the 20s of games that the Cardinals had a reasonable chance of winning, but they were blown by the bullpen. If you add half of
It was
those
26.
games, 26. So if you add 13 to their last year's win total, where do we sit at?
What, like 82, I think?
Okay. So 82 wins. So
Right? Is
I
that accurate, Richie? How many games did we win last year? 70?
Gosh, I don't even remember. I can look it up. I try to forget about that kind of thing, Matt.
Yeah, me
let's
too,
just
man.
call
Low
it
key.
let's just call it 82.
71,
So
71 and 91.
So if we
so
won another 13 games, it'd be 84 wins.
okay, so 84 wins. So and that's half. That's half the games we could have won that weren't blown by the bullpen.
Now let's talk
If
about quality starts. The Cardinals last year were at a 733 winning percentage when they had a quality start last year. You just added 47 more to your starting rotation. Let's say if you even got 13 games out of that, 47, that now puts you at a 95 win team. So
so
it's
I
not
don't
that
I
far out of
no
reality.
I don't think so either. I think the team constructed as is better than last year, and I think that, like I said, if you take half of the last year's games blown, you're at 84 wins, and that was also including trading your guys away at the deadline, and you got to take in account
Right.
for all that. I think the Cardinals, if they held on to those games, we would have looked at a really different season last year, even with a lot of the struggles and BS that the team dealt with. So I think making this team, I think a lot of people, when they hear these projections or predictions, they are looking at a team of last year when there's so many underlying variables about last year's record, it's not
Yes.
really indicative of what their team really was. And I know the argument where you are, what your win total is. I don't agree with that take at all. I don't agree with teams being who they are based on their record. I just don't, because we've seen time and time again what not just momentum or mojo or just your overall construction of your team looks like. We've seen teams that shouldn't do anything win it all. We've seen teams that should be the best not do it. There are so many underlying variables that really tell you who you are. I cannot just look at the record, and I know last year's team was better than what they are. So I think when you're looking at this year's team, comparing it to last year's team in a negative connotation, I think is a mistake, and I think it's a mistake a lot of people are making when it comes to the outlook of this team.
Richie, get the baseball gospel. This man is preaching out here. This man's
Let's
preaching.
let's go to the second hot take. Let's go to number 2.
This one is melting, I know. So, I said Lance Lynn is going to win 20 games this season and be a Cardinals representative at the 2024 All-Star Game. Should somebody call the fire department?
Wow.
Yes. Somebody should call the fire department. That's a hot take.
What makes you say that? Like what's your initial?
Drugs.
What's
Drugs.
your
He's been taking
initial?
Ambien.
Ativan, sir. Uh,
Ativan. Drugs.
uh,
Drugs is the answer to this question.
let me ask you
He's not in
this.
his right mind.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to ask a linear line of questioning. How many quality starts has Lance Lynn averaged the past 3 seasons? No, let me make it easier so you can look it up real quick. Even with his bad 2023, how many quality starts did Lance Lynn have last year?
We're not talking about this. This is the past. We're talking about the future.
How many
We're
quality?
not talking about it. We're talking
How
about a
many quality
37-year-old pitcher.
starts this last
I,
year? Let's just go back 1 year. How many quality starts did he have?
I think it was. I don't know if this is right, but 14.
Okay, he had 14 quality starts. That was playing for the Chicago White Sox in their ballpark, and then also on the road under a horrible environment, and then also going into LA where they were suspected of him tipping his pitches and not playing really in good shape. 14 quality starts. Mac, what was the Cardinals' winning percentage when they received the quality start again?
Last year was 733.
Okay. So what is a 733 winning percentage of 14?
3/4 roughly. So you're looking at like 11.
Okay. So 11 right there. So 11 win expectation just based on the Cardinals winning a majority of his quality starts if he's able to give them, which I think that's why they signed him. So you're looking at 11 wins. Where do you get the 9 more? I just think the Cardinals offense is going to be significant. I think they're going to be an elite top 10 offense. I also think we're going to have a quality bullpen. I think Lance Lynn's going to give you a little bit more quality starts. I really believe that Lance Lynn is going to be not just a double digit win. I think he's going to be in the high teens. 20 may be high. I rounded it up. I shot for the moon. But if you told me Lance Lynn one is going to win 15 games this season, I wouldn't think it was crazy. And a lot of people will. And I think just looking at the most simplest numbers can give you an idea that it is quite possible.
Well, if we were talking about 15, I would have given you with a realistic take. But I think 20 is a little bit overbearing and stretching it out quite a bit. being that the Cardinals have not had a 20-game winner since Adam Wainwright in what, 10 plus years. So
Steamer has him at 11, 11 and 8 with 15
I
cars.
would give him 13 as a generous guess off the go. But
Yeah,
I'm also a guy that believes that, you're going to see a lot of wins out of your bullpen. You're going to see a lot of wins out of your guys like Libertor, who are going to be able to fill in, or Zach Thompson for that matter, who's looked phenomenal this spring.
I don't know. I'm a little higher. I think we're going to see an inflated win total. I think we're going to be close. I think we're going to be closer to 20 than we will 10. I do, and that is my hot take number 2. And I think a lot of people are being a little. I think they're being a little too quick, too rational, to look at that prediction and go, that is so outlandish. It's Boulder Dash, as Mac likes to call it, and I don't think it's that wild. And then my hot take 1 that really got a lot of play, got a lot of people riled up, uh, got a lot of impressions, a lot of comments. I said if Matthew Liberatore can maintain a 95 to 97 velo on his fastball and sinker, he'd be a better starting pitcher than Blake Snell.
that initially, I was very shocked to see the pushback. Um, I only say that because, you're rooting for the guy, and I don't see anything wrong with that. Maybe it's a hot take for him to say Matthew Liberatore is gonna sit 97 miles an hour in the air or whatever, but I mean, I don't see any problem with,
But you
rooting for
also,
the kid.
not to interrupt, Richie,
No, you're good.
you have to be cognizant. I didn't say he will. I said if
No, right,
he
right.
can maintain
Right.
that velocity.
Yeah, that's where I was a little surprised by the pushback because I was like, what's wrong with, your opinion on this? I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it was a very, generous opinion, but, yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
I just think that when I look at some of the things that I see with Libby, he has become very extraordinary on his innings that he is having a high velo. He reminds me of Blake Snell in a way where he is a little erratic, but he can use that in his favor. I think he has a little bit more of a stature to him. I think he's a little bit more heavier. I think that can help him go an extra inning or two, even when he's maxing out. I think Blake Snell is, a little bit limber. I think he's more of he's not a little dude by any means, but he is a smaller frame, a little wiry, so to speak, with a little built-in muscle. I think Matthew Liberatore is a little bit more bulkier. So when I say better, if Matthew Liberatore can give you that 95, 97, and he can give you an average of 6 innings, and he can up the strikeout total and have a lot of the similar underlying metrics of Blake Snell, I think Matthew Liberatore has that potential. We just have not seen it yet, but it also takes left-handed pitchers longer to develop. It takes pitchers in general longer to develop at times. Everyone's such a win now mentality and have the patience of a 2-year-old that they can't allow times
Well,
to people to breathe. And then you look at the trade and you see Randy Rosarena, and that gives people a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth and kind of want to rush his development. And then what we've seen from him, I think we've seen a lot of positives from Matthew Liberatore. Is it quite there yet? No, but I'm not quite ready to give up on the guy. There is a lot of key signs that tell me this dude has a nasty arsenal if he can put it all together. And I think he could be a quality, if not elite, major league starting pitcher if he can have it all click.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in there, but you kind of said what I was gonna say. Is there's a reason why he's being rushed. Obviously, when you know give away Randy Rosarena and then he's doing what he's doing over in Tampa, there's a reason people are scratching their head a little bit. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with what you said there. I think you're totally right. But he's another one of those guys where he's had some opportunities in the last couple of years, and you're kind of like sitting around like, okay, when are we going to start seeing a little bit of that? What we're expecting out of this guy. Um, I think we saw it maybe once last year. I think it was pretty maybe early to mid season where we were like, okay, this guy's showing us something here. Um, yeah, but he's another one of those guys that's going to be a big piece for this team. If he can step up, the team could see the 95 wins that you're projecting there. So it's going to take the starting pitching to step up, find a couple of guys that are going to win you some games in the bottom of the rotation for this team to excel and make the playoffs. Matt,
Yo,
what you got?
I think it was a little bit of a hot take, but
Mm-hmm.
it's fair to say though. I mean, I think it's fair to say that those things could happen, but I think it's a lot more than just velocity to figure out how to pitch at the major league level. And while I think it's something that is very beneficial to have in your arsenal, it doesn't always work for everybody. So I don't know if I see Matthew Liberatore immediately coming in and winning multiple Cy Youngs. I don't know if I project him as that guy. Me personally, right now, I don't. But I'd like to be proven wrong. I think he'll. I think those added tools to his arsenal will give him great success. But I think that was a little bit of a hot take. But I also don't understand the overreaction that people had as well. You know what I'm saying? A
For
little
sure.
bit
Well,
brash, if you will.
yeah, there's some people that go out of their way to comment on my stuff because it's me. I gotta take that into account. And then there's, overall just the aspect, like Richie was saying, who he was traded for. I think Matthew Liberatore is on the list of a lot of. He's that player that Cardinals fans are kind of learning to pick on
Sure, the
because
whipping
they
boy.
haven't quite seen it yet. And
Hmm.
it's unfortunate because I think there's more that there's going to get unlocked there. And I'm kind of eager to see it. And I think this is a big year for him. And I think we're going to see some stuff. We got a couple comments in the live cave I want to touch on. And I think it will really segue into our final topic of just overall free agency in general. Specifically, Scott Boras clients, we're seeing them finally come off the board. Belly, Chapman taking kind of cush 1-year deals with some opt outs and some multi year insurance built on the back for them. You have Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery obviously still available. There's rumors that Jordan Montgomery is not going to take a short deal and high likelihood of signing in Boston or the Rangers at any moment. You have multiple teams interested in Blake Snell, specifically on short-term deals. Angels, Phillies. You have the Yankees that have been involved on some level. I will still refuse to remove Seattle, even though a lot of people have because of their spending. There has been some rumors in the live cave about the health of Steven Matz. We have a guy that joins Max Spaces, GG. I don't remember his full ad, but he is a regular contributor in the live cave and just overall in our web of network. Good guy, big fan of ours. And he said that he has a childhood friend who is a clubhouse attendee or does something. And he is claiming that there is more than meets the eye with Steven Matz right now as far as his health. The claim is that the Cardinals aren't fully 100% sure of how healthy he is, and they're not keeping it quiet, but they're also not acknowledging it. And then we're getting reports that they are slow playing him. They're using the excuse of they're trying to avoid injury by doing so. I think he's going to get 1 inning of work, which sounds really weird. Like they're just like almost throwing him out there to see how he holds up and maybe see how he see how he bounces back from throwing an inning, almost like they're being super cautious for a reason, maybe more of a reason than they're being told. What do you guys just make of this whole thing? I know you've seen the rumors. Obviously, you can touch on your opinions of, what's going on with the free agent market. We've kind of exhausted that though. But what do you make of this Steven Matz thing? And do you think the Cardinals are going to miss an opportunity by going out and getting someone like Blake Snell on a short-term deal? Mac, I'll let you start.
So I guess with the Steven Matz thing, I'll let you know tomorrow because I believe the game is televised on MLB.com tomorrow. So if that's really the case, I'm going to be watching tomorrow. I'm off work, thank God. So, with the game being rained out today, I'll be able to hopefully get my own eyes on and give you a more in-depth opinion on that shortly. I mean, I think that G's, he's never steered me wrong before. He usually is pretty credible with what he, talks about and stuff. And there's no inkling to believe that he's being dishonest. I truly think that he got some information and maybe it's a thing. But tomorrow, I want to see with my eye test. I want to see what he looks like, and then we'll kind of go from there on that one. Could the Cardinals be missing a golden opportunity on the free agency market? Yeah, potentially. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see. There are a lot of analytics that we've talked about prior, to include the quality starts and the revamped bullpen and stuff. I mean, this really could bode well for the Cardinals. So if they come out and look successful this year and they don't, you know, overpay for Blake Snell on a short term or Jordan Montgomery for that matter, then maybe there's more free agency options looming, or maybe they make a bigger splash at the deadline. So to each of those, I'll say it remains to be seen.
Richie?
Let's just, for the sake of my fantasy team, I hope he's not hurt. The Memphis Redbirds need him. But aside from that, I don't think, I'm going to give you my just based opinion. I don't think the Cardinals have any interest in adding onto this team. I don't see why they would. And as far as their track history goes, sure, we would all love to see Snell, Montgomery on a short-term deal. That would be awesome. But I don't think the team is necessarily hurting if Steven Matz can't make, opening day, let alone just what are we missing without him, in my opinion. I'm not super high on Steven Matz, but I don't think it's, going to crush the team if Steven Matz isn't able to go. Obviously, we have absolutely no depth on this starting rotation as it is, so that you can make a case for that, but I'm not super hurt if if he's injured. I think it would give the Cardinals more of an incentive to add on at the deadline, which would be, pivotal for the team moving on and towards the playoff race. But yeah, I honestly don't know what to say. Hopefully he's not. We need the depth, but I don't think it crushes you.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I look forward to that kind of report tomorrow, Mac, if you can catch the game, and I guess we'll see how that looks, and then maybe over the next week we can reevaluate that conversation and see if it is something worth talking about.
Congratulations. You've actually finished listening to this bullshit.